The alien woman's gaze burned into me, her eyes shimmering with a mesmerizing golden hue that seemed to defy the laws of physics. She tilted her head slightly, her voice a strange harmony of melodies as she said, "Look into my eyes and remember, human. We've met before." I froze. The sterile laboratory faded into insignificance as her words reverberated through me. Who was she? Why did her voice trigger a strange familiarity, like the echo of a half-forgotten dream? "That's impossible," I managed, my voice cracking. "This is our first contact with your kind." Her lips curved into a smile, soft yet enigmatic. "For you, perhaps. But for me, our paths have crossed countless times." The other scientists in the room stared at the exchange, their bewilderment mirroring my own. The protocol dictated neutrality, a calm approach to any interaction with the alien delegates, but nothing had prepared us for something this personal. The room's hum of machinery seemed deafening in the silence that followed. "How?" I whispered. "When?" She stepped closer, her movements fluid and deliberate, her translucent dress trailing like smoke. "Long before your kind left the safety of their caves. I've walked among your ancestors, watched them shape stone tools and gaze at the stars. You've always been curious, searching for answers in the vast unknown. And it was I who gave you the means to question." My breath hitched. "You guided us in ways you could never understand," she said. "Your kind was young, full of fire and wonder. But you, specifically you, have always been a seeker. Even then." "That's absurd," I shot back, though the conviction in my words faltered. "I'm just a scientist. There's nothing special about me." Her eyes narrowed, and the glow within them intensified. "Memory is a fragile thing, bound by the constraints of your linear perception of time. But I can free you from that." The room dimmed. Her presence seemed to swell, overwhelming my senses. Before I could react, she raised a hand, and a wave of warmth surged through me, followed by a flood of images, snapshots of other lives, other worlds. I saw myself as a hunter, spear in hand, stalking prey under an alien sky. I saw myself kneeling before a glowing orb, its radiance mirrored in my tear-streaked face. I saw her, always her, watching from the shadows, guiding, teaching. When I came to, I was on my knees, gasping for air. The other scientists were shouting, their voices muffled and distorted, but I couldn't focus on them. My mind reeled from the influx of memories. They felt real, undeniable. "Why show me this?" I demanded, my voice hoarse. She knelt before me, her golden eyes piercing into my soul. "Because your kind is on the brink of a choice. A choice that could lead to your ascension or your annihilation. And you, seeker, hold the key." I shook my head. "I'm no leader. I'm just a seeker," she interrupted. "The same as you've always been. In every lifetime, you've sought the truth, the patterns hidden in chaos. And now, you must decide whether to embrace the truth I've shown you or bury it under the weight of fear and doubt." Her words struck a chord deep within me. The memory she'd unlocked felt like pieces of a puzzle I'd been assembling all my life without knowing it. I thought of the countless nights I'd spent staring at the stars, wondering what lay beyond, and the inexplicable pull that had driven me to pursue a career in astrophysics. What happens if I choose wrong?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Her expression darkened. "Your kind will fall. Not by my hand, but by your own hubris. The threads of your fate are fragile, easily unraveled." The room's lights flickered, and for a moment, the air felt heavy with impending doom. I looked around at my colleagues, their faces pale with confusion and fear. They hadn't seen what I'd seen. They hadn't felt the weight of the choice before us. "How do I know I can trust you?" I asked, turning back to her. "You don't," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "Trust is irrelevant. What matters is the choice you make." She rose to her feet, towering over me. Your kind's potential is immense, but so is your capacity for destruction. Remember, Seeker, the path forward is never without sacrifice. Before I could respond, her form began to shimmer, her edges blurring like a mirage. The golden glow of her eyes lingered, even as the rest of her faded into nothingness. The silence that followed was deafening. My colleagues bombarded me with questions, but I couldn't answer them. I was too lost in thought, grappling with the gravity of what had just occurred. In the weeks that followed, I became obsessed with the memories she'd unlocked. I pored over ancient texts, archaeological findings, and even myths and legends, searching for evidence of her presence in humanity's history. To my astonishment, I found fragments that aligned with the images in my mind, carvings of a radiant figure, stories of a guide who appeared in times of great upheaval. The scientific community dismissed my claims as delusions brought on by the stress of first contact. Even my closest friends began to distance themselves, concerned for my mental health. But I couldn't stop. I knew the truth, even if no one else did. Then came the message. It was broadcast simultaneously across all frequencies, in every language known to humanity. A warning. An alien force was approaching, a coalition of species who saw humanity as a threat to the balance of the cosmos. They demanded our surrender or promised our annihilation. Panic spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to form alliances, to build defenses, but it was clear we were hopelessly outmatched. The end seemed inevitable. And yet, I couldn't help but feel that this was the choice she'd spoken of. The memories she'd given me, the knowledge of her guidance throughout our history, felt like a lifeline, a key to our survival. But how could I convince the world to listen? On the eve of the alien fleet's arrival, I stood before a global assembly, my heart pounding in my chest. I told them everything, about the alien woman, the memories, and the truth of our shared history. I showed them the evidence I'd uncovered, the patterns that linked her to our greatest leaps in progress. She believed in us, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. She saw our potential, even when we couldn't see it ourselves. But she also warned us of our flaws, our tendency toward self-destruction. Now we stand at a crossroads. Will we rise to meet the challenge, or will we fall into chaos? For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, one by one, they began to nod. The unity that followed was unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. Nations set aside their differences, pooling their resources and knowledge to prepare for what lay ahead. When the alien fleet arrived, they were met not with fear, but with resolve. Humanity stood united, ready to defend itself. But more importantly, we were ready to prove that we were not the threat they believed us to be. In the end, it wasn't our weapons that saved us. It was our willingness to listen, to understand. Through dialogue and diplomacy, we convinced the alien coalition to see us not as adversaries, but as allies. The woman's guidance had led us to this moment, and we had risen to the challenge. As the alien fleet departed, I felt a strange sense of peace. Her words echoed in my mind. The path forward is never without sacrifice. We'd faced our darkest hour and emerged stronger, more united than ever before.